Okay, so what are you saying, people, and welcome back to your favorite YouTube channel. So today, guys, like always, another weekly analysis for you. On the screen are the pairs that we'll be analyzing today, but make sure you do stay to the end of the video, as I do have a bonus pair in store. So yeah, guys, I did take a trade on pound CHF, which I'm currently still holding over the weekend. And a little bit of drawdown at the moment, looking to anticipate the next swing high. This was a pair I was looking at. One of the few CHF pairs I was looking at: pound CHF, Euro CHF, pound CHF, Euro CHF, Aussie CHF, because I'm liking the momentum. They're kind of similar situation to the yen pairs. Yen pairs haven't quite hit some areas which I'm looking to short just yet, or give me an entry I've been looking for, but pound CHF did. We've crept into this area here, brief doji there, where price kind of paused on the lower time frames. Then we shot to the downside and just about tapped into that same area, got an entry on the hourly chart as I saw momentum picking up. Did see some nice continuation, however, we have found some support here in the market struggling a little bit, so I'm kind of hoping we pick up next week and see that downside. If we do go for another push, I will look for an entry if I do get stopped out. As long as we don't break through that area, that zone, I will be looking for downside. But you can see how price has been moving, push up, nice swing down, push up, nice swing down. So again, I'm looking for that same type of price action again, at least back into the low here, and then we'll see what we can do from there. If we do get back into the low, I'll start to manage the trade a lot more closer. I'm looking for a push into this low here, because I do think on the daily chart we can actually get all the way back down to this low. So that's really where I do see the price ending up. Nice impulse down, a pullback, and a continuation into that low. So that's the plan overall. But of course, when you are trading stops, you're kind of just going with the flow, seeing what happens. We might push down, find some support, and we might push bullish, or we might kind of collapse out this guy. So we'll see what the market gives us. But that was the position I had from this week. There was a few other positions I was eyeing up. I was looking at a few yen pairs, but like I said, they didn't quite get there. Euro USD was very close to my zone, which we'll touch on in a second. A zone which I was looking to get involved didn't quite make there, so hopefully Euro USD can make that move this week. If we quickly take a look at the DXY, DXY still bearish bias. That was the bias coming into the week, and that's still the bias going into next week. This zone here I'm really liking. There's a brief area here which price is kind of stalled at, which is kind of given price a bit of a hard time, and at one point did look like we're about to sell off, but we didn't quite do that, and we're still looking pretty corrective. If I drop to the hourly chart, you can see we're kind of still moving correctly down, so I feel like there's probably another move higher for euro, kind of make another stab higher, 1, 2, 3, maybe a fourth one, and then we might get the sell off to the downside, of course coming to test that low, and then looking for a new low. Looking at the 4 hour, you can see some really nice structure here. You got your swing high, your swing low, your swing high, your swing low. Looking for that next swing high for a new swing low, and probably a push back down to this area here in the near future. So DXY very bearish on. Therefore, pairs like Euro USD, I'm expecting upside. I'm going to only be interested in looking to buy euro. Because there's some other dollar pairs which I'm not too sure about, like Aussie dollar, New Zealand dollar, not particularly clear. But Euro USD, I like the structure. If I go to the daily chart, you can see the market is making these higher highs and higher lows. So we are slowly picking up bullish. And again, next week, I'm looking for a pullback of that and a continuation higher. So if I do drop to the 4 hour, I will be looking at a retest of this zone here, which was the same zone I was talking about from last week, and this high there as well. But we're looking for the retest of that. You can see we've got the 0.5 there, 0.618 there, 0.786 is just kind of below this area, so probably won't come into play, but definitely the 0.618 at this zone would be nice. You can see we're having a pretty corrective pullback, which again is a good sign, saying that this is most likely a pullback for price to go higher. So again, if you can see one more move down, test this zone here, we'll be looking for entries in this area. If we do come a little bit deeper, then of course I'll keep a close eye on that area there too. But generally speaking, 1.086 is my preferred level. Hopefully we can get there pretty early next week, and then look for buys for the remainder of the week, and then we'll be looking for a push back to the swing high. So that will be the plan for euro. Keep an eye on that level there for some buys, and looking to target the swing high for next week. Okay, so next up we've got USD JPY. So This week we did see some upside. You can see on the weekly chart, basically a doji, but big wick to the downside, and most of the week we did go and retrace that after a very bearish start. However, everything still does look like we do have more downside left. Such a big move, I do think naturally we're going to see some retracement, which is kind of what we're seeing at the moment already. So I marked up a couple areas where we could retrace to before potentially continuing that overall momentum from the previous weeks. I'm going to look at 149 and 152, and funny enough, these are the same areas from last week, which I did mention. I think we opened up around here after we did see a big flush to the downside to the start of the week, and we've just been slowly working our way back to the upside, back to those areas. So next week, eyes on the same levels, 149, 152. If we don't hold at the first area, then we'll look to see what we can do at the second area, but the plan is to look to short high, anticipate a lower high coming in, and possibly a swing back to the low. Of course, there'll be other targets you could look at. This swing low here as well, depends how aggressive you want to be with your positions and your risk reward, what type of risk reward you're looking for. But in terms of smart areas to get involved in terms of looking for sells, 149, 152 definitely tick the box with me. So that's what I'll be looking at and trying to see if I can trail stops, possibly all the way back to that low and maybe further as well, because really clean leg to the downside. If I do draw a Fibonacci on that move, we've got the 50 over there, 0.618 just above us, 0.786 at that level there. So we've got some really nice confidence in those areas. It's just waiting for price to get there. Then looking for some rejection, looking for some entries, and then trading that move. So next week, keep an eye on a slightly higher, slightly bigger move to the upside to go and test that area initially. And hopefully we can look at some entries. If we do push a little bit further, then we'll look at 152 to take the sells. But generally speaking, a lot of momentum in the market. Now we're seeing this corrective move as we take our time. So likelihood is we're going to form a high somewhere and probably continue back to that low. So keep an eye on 149, 152 for next week, but still expecting more downside for dollar yen. Okay, so next up we've got dollar CAD. So dollar CAD, we had a big rejection on that weekly chart. Price came up into a pretty big level here around 1.387. As you can see this week, massive wick to the upside, big wick piercing through that area. Markets reversed and closed at a very strong level and closes a nice bearish engulfing candle. So that probably gives us a good sign that we can probably see more downside in the near future. I've got the low of the range around here, but we won't discuss that too much because we're very far away. So, it will take us a long time to get there, but we can keep that in the back of our minds for now. But more realistically, we do have a nice level here of support on the weekly chart around 1.364. So that's probably the next major level we're probably going to work our way towards. So if we do scale down to the 4 hour, it is looking at push to this area looks pretty reasonable. And we have broken through a nice level of support just recently as well. Some nice momentum. Haven't really come back for a retest. So if we can see that happen next week, that could be a nice place to look for some entries. And again, expect that next rollover to the downside. So if you are looking at USD CAD 1.38, which is basically the test of this area, if we can see another push higher, maybe take out some weaker sellers in this area here, push into the level, retest lower high, and then again, maybe a push back into the swing low, if that's what you're looking for. Or if you want to push it a little bit further, as we said, from a weekly standpoint, there's a good chance we're going to make our way to that level. Maybe not be next week. Next week could be a doji. Price could just fluctuate a little bit, but there's a good chance that eventually the momentum from that bearish engulfing will take us to the downside, and that next level support is likely where price is going to end up at. So I'm looking for 1.362, 361, 363, just generally in that area there over the next few days, couple of weeks. But in terms of an entry, do you want to see a move higher up first? We've got a lovely level there. Look for a retest and then look for your continuations. But that will be the plan for next week for dollar CAD. Okay, so over to euro pound. So euro pound's a bit of an awkward one, but we have come back into a nice area where possibly we could be seeing another low high form. If I scale to the weekly chart, you can see we have been slowly heading to the downside, like in steps. We have a high over there, another high over there, another high over there, another high over there. And again, we just had a massive wick to the upside where, again, we could be seeing another high form. The only thing is we've had such an aggressive move high, very impulsive move. It almost looks like price is kind of gearing up for a reversal, which I kind of expect to happen, because if you look at the nature of how the market has been moving and compare it to this most recent move, it is out of sync, it is out of line. So I do expect us to probably eventually form a higher low and push up at a later date. But for now, we do have a massive level of support here. And if I do drop to the 4 hour, you can see we do have a really nice impulse there. So if you were to kind of correctively fall over, this could end up being a really nice place for a buy. Maybe we push a little bit lower to retest the high there as well. But generally speaking, this 0.84985 area looks like a really nice place for a long. And likewise, it does the resistance up there. If we push up one more time before the bigger sell, so if you do push up higher and come back and test this area, I do think that's also a nice place for a short, because we know we're in an area where we could be seeing another low high form. So we might not be seeing a move all the way back to the swing low all the way down here. But even if we do move halfway, a third of the way, the quarter of the way, you can still bank some really nice profits before maybe price does push on. So if you're looking for buys, you do want price to come a lot lower. If I do draw a fib on this move from the swing low to the swing high, you can see we've got the 50% all the way down there at that same level. So you kind of want to see price make its way to that area. But if we don't, if you push up first and you're looking for some sells, we are in a nice area where a low high could happen. So if you do make our way back to the high, see some nice rejection, that could end up being a nice short. And you can look to set it to then buy it back up at a later date. So depends what you're looking for. I'm a big fan of the buys right now because of all that momentum, and it looks like we're having a pretty corrective move down. So it tells me that this is most likely a pullback for price to go higher. Therefore, the buys look a little bit more attractive, but I would also keep an eye on the sells if you are looking for that as well. But that will be the plan next week for Euro Pound. Okay, so over to Aussie dollar. So we are looking a little bit bearish. We have had a nice corrective push up. I don't like the higher time frames how we're looking. You can see the daily chart, really massive wick rejection to the downside and a pretty strong close to the upside there as well. Weekly, we're kind of seeing that as well, big wick to the downside. So higher time frames don't really look particularly clear, mainly because we're kind of just moving sideways here. This to me is basically just consolidation. So again, as a person who looks at the higher time frames for guidance, for direction, for bias, I don't really have much to say on the higher time frames when we're looking like this. So again, Aussie dollar is not going to really make my watch list for next week. Yeah, it's not going to make my watch list for next week, but I can see some shorter term moves, because when higher time frames are choppy, the lower time frames is where I look for direction, and what I can see is a really nice move up higher. We have come back to some areas here, which, as I mentioned last week, and I do think we can see some nice reactions to the downside. I'm not expecting anything crazy. We could do, but I do think we can catch, a decent move down for a couple of days before maybe the market starts to fluctuate again and go off on another crazy move. But for now, I do like how price is reacting with 0.66. If we do break that, I'm looking at 0.662. But I'm looking at price coming to these areas, react like we did on Friday, and seeing a move down, possibly back to some of these areas as your targets into that low there, possibly this low here. We could potentially go a lot further, potentially go and fill the wick as well, all the way down here. But I think play a bit safe with Aussie dollar the next week, just because of how we're moving. Very, very choppy price action, no kind of clear momentum or clear trend. So as a result, I'll play it safe with targets. But in terms of areas to get involved with from a short side of things, I'm liking this level and that level as well, especially how we are moving. It's very, very corrective on this move up. So it tells me most likely this will be price trying to put a lower high in to make a move lower, whether we'll go create new lows and continue a trend. Like I said, I'm not too sure about that, but in terms of a place where we can get a nice short, 50, 100 pips maybe, you could be looking at a nice move from those areas. So keep an eye on these lows here, 0.66, 0.662, already respecting the area quite nice. Let's see if we can make another move higher, test that area early next week, find some sells. If not, a little bit higher up at 0.662. Again, looking for a similar move back to the downside. So that remains the plan next week for Aussie dollar. Okay, so up next we've got NZD CAD. So we've come back into a nice area and we're showing a lot of rejection here on the 4 hour and the daily chart. You can see daily we've got 1, 2, 3 piercing wicks to the upside. On the 4 hour, you can see price has bashed its head on this level a few times. Price support now acting as a resistance. I do expect NZD CAD to continue this bearish momentum to the downside. I'm looking for a push back into the swing low over there. We've had a really nice bearish leg. I'm looking at this as a retracement of that for the next lower high. One over there, second over there. Looks like we've got the third over here. Looking for a push into that low, and then eventually that swing low there at 0.80700. So everything's pretty smooth for NZD CAD. I can make a lot of sense of this pair. Some other pairs not so much, but NZD CAD I do like. So again, in terms of entries, this is the best place for it. You can see every time you get there, the market is rejecting. So if you were to make another push up, that's where you're looking for your entries. Don't really want to get involved in these areas here, where it's a bit more choppy, a bit more chaotic, difficult to get a solid stop loss placement. But at least when you're up here, stop loss above the high, you're pretty safe. If you get spiked out, you can always look to re-enter. Whereas here, you can really get the ball, really get it wrong a few times before potentially even catching the move. And even then, not even the best place here. At least you got the best place, plus you would take advantage of the risk reward to your best ability because you're up high. And in a safer place. So really do like this level here at 0.827. So if you do make another move there, that'll be great. Targets, again, it depends how far you're looking. I've spoken about this daily area there, so that's like a longer term swing target. But you've got the swing low down here, that could be a really nice target. You've got the swing low here, nice target there as well. And you've of course got the swing low over here, which could be a nice kind of target for the day. Or even for the session, depends how bearish we are, but that could look really good there for NZD CAD. So keep an eye on those areas for targets, keep an eye on this level here for entries. But yeah, I'm expecting a bigger move down next week for NZD CAD. Okay, so over to pound NZD. So I'm expecting a lot more downside for this one. I've been talking a lot about pound NZD, Euro NZD, Euro Aussie, pound Aussie. I do think those collection of pairs, they're going for a big reversal pretty soon. They've all come up to some big heights in the monthly chart, pound NZD especially, back to the wick high over here. I do think there's a long way down for this one should we reject this area, which so far we're doing a pretty good job of that. If we drop to the 4 hour, you can see we are starting to build up some nice bearish structure here. Strong push down, pull back, another push, look at another pullback, fall again, another push. So that's pretty much the plan for pound NZD next week. Kind of like a head and shoulder pattern. Not the cleanest one in the world, but does fit the mold. You got left shoulder there, massive head, and then your right shoulder over here. Nice break of the neckline. So that does leave behind us that neckline for the retest. And then yeah, looking for continuation to the downside. There's an area over here which I was a long time ago looking to buy from after this strong impulse. We never had the retest, so I do think eventually we'll slowly make our way back to that area. So pound NZD for me is pretty straightforward next week. Just looking for the sell, looking for the lower high. That is our previous lower high there. This is most likely our low. So now we're looking for the next lower high to go and take out that low and continue the move. So pretty straightforward, the plan. Now just staying patient, waiting for the entries and taking the position. Targets back to that low make a lot of sense. If you want to push trade a little bit further, I think there's a good chance we do get to this area around 2.095. So keep an eye out for this opportunity next week for pound NZD. Okay, so next up we've got CAD Yen. So CAD Yen, similar situation to dollar yen, looking for continuation to the low. Nice move to the downside past couple of weeks or past week, really nice move there. And now I'm looking for a pullback of that for continuation. We've got 0.618, 0.5 in that area. Looking for a move down from that. If we have a slightly bigger pullback, I do have this area just around the 0.786 mark from this low. If we do have a bigger pullback, looking for a reaction up there. So I'm liking where we're trading. I'm liking how price is moving as well. A lot of momentum in this move, and now this move is pretty labored, which is a good sign. Again, if it's moving correctly, most likely it's not going to last, and we're expecting that bearish momentum to pick up. Still corrective right now, so maybe next week we push up, maybe put to take out some early sellers, and then we get the follow through. That would be a really nice entry, probably early next week. And again, targets, you've got the swing low down there, you got this area here. It's really up to you how far you want to take it, but in terms of sensible areas, good locations to look at for some shorts. 107, 108 we'll call it, looks really sensible. And of course you've got the level just above us there. If we have a bigger pullback than anticipated, well, we can be looking at some shorts a little higher up around 110. And I'm pretty sure these are the same levels I mentioned last week. It's just that we had such a big move down at the start of this week that we're just only now getting to those areas. So the analysis pretty much hasn't changed since last week, and the bias is still very much the same. So keep an eye on those same levels, 108, 108, 110, and yeah, looking for continuation into the swing low next week for CAD yen. Okay, so next up we've got pound USD. So pound USD, I'm looking for a big swing to the upside. We've had such a corrective move back down, so I'm still looking at that as a pullback. However, I'm not looking to jump the gun. I'm waiting for price to make the move first for me, and then I'll look to follow it behind it. Again, if I look at the overall structure we have at play, push, pullback, push, pullback, push, look another pullback for another push. So again, the analysis is pretty much the same as last week. We do have this descending kind of channel, descending format. Price has been moving in, but I'm waiting for price to break out of that, make its move, and then look for the pullbacks for the continuation. Sort of what Euro USD has done, but just pound USD is a long way behind it. So hopefully we can see that continuation next week. Had a really strong push there at the end of this week, so it's a sign that okay, maybe we're going to see some follow through and some more to come. Just have to stay patient. If we do get that, then the break of the first high, which is this point, because this is the high that sent the market down. So break of that, and then inherently looking for the retest of that, and then hopefully that level can be the one that does take us higher. And targets, again, we've got the swing high, so that's your textbook target there, but of course there will be other areas to consult with, depending how far you want to take the trade. But that's sort of what I'll be looking at. Again, I'll be trading stops, so I'll be trying to see how far I can take it really. But it will depend on how price is moving, how the retest looks, and how price is looking, how much momentum we're seeing. Will depend how aggressive I will trail my stops. So we'll judge that closer to the time of taking the trade and whilst we're in the trade. But the plan is really looking for the breakout, retest, and anticipating more upside. So keep an eye on 1.282. That's really the level we want to see break and retest. And then we're looking for a swing back to the high at 1.3 for next week. Okay, so next up, pound CAD. So pound CAD, I'm looking for some sells roughly around this area here. We've had a really big move to the downside this week, breaking out that low. I'm looking for price to pull back into that area, see the next lower high, and continue to the downside. We've got some equal highs over here as price was kind of consolidating. We broke to the downside, formed a lower low, lower high, nice drop to the downside, giving us that lower low. So now looking for another lower high in that sequence for another move down. We've just come off with such a big reaction of that weekly resistance level around 178. As you can see, a lot of rejection in that area. We just had another rejection there as well. So I do think we can see price go a lot lower. Now I am showing respect to the trend because we are still pretty bullish. There's a big level over here of resistance turn support. And we do have a long-standing trend line here as well. So I'm looking for price to come back and retest that area, and possibly we might find a higher low and continue higher. But in the meantime, if we can look for some sells towards that area, then we can focus on some buys at a later date and see if we can take it higher. But in the meantime, we've had such a nice rejection off that high. Really nice momentum there as well. So looking for the short. Looking for the short firstly, and then hopefully we can look for some buys later. I'll probably go into detail more about the buys next week because I don't expect both these situations to play out in 1 week. It's a lot of movement for just 1 week. So for now, focus on the sells. Hopefully we can see a bit more upside, take the short, and then we can discuss the buys possibly the week after. But that is basically what I'm looking for pound CAD. So that'll be the analysis going into next week for pound CAD. Okay, so next up we've got pound yen. So again, similar situation to the rest of the yen pairs, CAD yen, dollar yen, all the other yen pairs. But of course, when you look at pound CAD and dollar on this series. But yeah, with pound yen looking at more downside. Now this one's a little bit further from that area of interest. Dollar yen and CAD yen are pretty close to my areas, whereas pound yen I still want to see a pretty big move higher before I do start looking short. We've had a really nice corrective move. So again, this looks like just another correction. This is where all the momentum lies for pound yen, and you can see how much time we're taking to push up. So again, most likely this bullish move is just price getting ready to put that next lower high in and then continue in its path to the downside. So the plan is looking for the lower high, then the push to the low. But yeah, I do want to see quite another big push higher to come into this zone here. You can see on the 4 hour, brief pause there in the market, nice bullish candle, then we broke to the downside. So that's kind of like the last major pause slash level of support, which of course now we turn resistance in the market. We do have this area all the way up here, but again, very far away. Even this level is pretty far as well. So I don't expect us to get there, but of course, if for some reason we see a really bullish push, then keep an eye out on 196.259. But most likely, this will be the area of focus for pound yen next week, around the 192 mark. So yeah, lovely move down, looking for a pullback of that. We'll be finding some entries in this area if we get there. And again, keeping it pretty simple, taking it back to the swing low. Then we see what we can do from then on. But that will be the plan next week for pound yen. Okay, so next up we've got gold. So gold, really choppy price action so far. I was expecting price just to continue next week, but it hit a brick wall, came into the high here, and came straight back down. So price action for gold is getting a little bit choppy these days. But again, the overall direction, the overall trend of the market is still very much to the upside. So my bias is still very bullish. I'd only be looking at bullish opportunities. And again, as I was talking a lot about towards the end of last week, you want to focus your entries lower down because the market is just kind of fluctuating right now. So getting involved in these areas just becomes very difficult, and it's difficult to even place a good stop loss as well. If you're looking at the 4 hour hourly chart, I know maybe intraday you can probably find some short opportunities to get in and out very quickly, but looking for anything from a swing perspective is always difficult. So you want to wait for price to come to you, come back to some nice areas where you can plot a nice stop loss underneath. The market is still kind of showing respect to these higher lows. One over there, another one there, another one there, another one there, another one there as well. So you can see ever so slightly, the market is still kind of pushing higher. So if you can get a stop loss underneath one of these lows, you're in a pretty good place. Nothing is guaranteed, of course, but at least you're not in a place where you can get stopped out on just like a random move, random wick, and just see price moving direction. Of course, you can still get faked out, but at least you at a solid level, so you know exactly where you're looking for that re-entry, and then you expect price to continue in your direction. So yeah, conditions aren't great, so you want to focus on your entries a little bit lower down. I'm looking at this area here for gold around 23.70. Get your stop loss underneath that low, and hopefully you'll swing back to the high. But again, we are rejecting the high pretty well there. So yeah, swing back to the high would be a fantastic trade, but there's a world we do come straight back down as well, so do watch out for that. But yeah, gold, I'm still pretty bullish. We may kind of just mess around and slowly push up this week. If that's the case, that's the case. I'll only be looking at a push into this low before buying. Anything in there I'm not really interested in because, again, very choppy conditions. I want to be making sure I'm buying in smart areas. And where we're trading, there's nothing really much going on there. So yeah, waiting for a move back into that area, see if we can get it. If we do, great. If we don't, all well, we'll move on to another pair. But yeah, looking for a swing back to the high next week for gold. Okay, so now on to Bitcoin. So Bitcoin, we saw a massive rejection at the low this week. Price sold off a cliff a little bit, came into the low, big wick rejection, nice bounce. So with Bitcoin, I wouldn't really do anything right now because we're in the middle of that range. This is a nice descending channel where buyers have been pretty successful and so has sellers. And I do think there's still a bigger move down for Bitcoin. But again, this is not the best place for that. So if Bitcoin was to make a move back to the high, this is where you want to be looking to position your sells. And likewise, if you're still looking for buys, this is kind of where you want to look for your buys. But right now, we're in the middle of nowhere. We're in the middle of the range, middle of the channel. Your price could fluctuate here quite a lot. It could end up forming another lower high and pushing down. It could break through. There's just not a lot to go with. So I wouldn't really look to touch anything with Bitcoin. Nice rejection at the low, but if we see that momentum take us higher, if you are short bias, this is where you're looking for your entries around the 68, 70k mark, and looking for that swing back to the low. And of course, vice versa with the buys, you're looking for price to come back to support. A lot of rejection in this area. This is where you're looking to position yourself long and hopefully catch another swing to the upside. But for Bitcoin to really be on its way, I need to see breakouts outside of this channel. And then I'll be expecting the next kind of bull phase to come through. but at the moment in time, we're still very much stuck in this channel, and anything can happen really. But in terms of smart players to get involved, yeah, this is not the place. So I'd wait for price to come a little bit higher, around 68, 70k, or push back down to 54, 55, and look for some buys down there. So that's very much the plan next week for Bitcoin. And last but not least, we've got Euro CHF. So this is the pair from last week. This was the bonus pairs from last weekend. It's the same bonus pair this week. That's because the opportunity is only now coming into play. I was talking about a retest of this low here, and we've only just, well, not even quite, but we've only come into the vicinity of that area. So looking for another push to the upside next week for Euro Swiss, but the idea is to look for another lower high, for another push down. Again, multiple areas you can target, the low here, we've got the low over there, we've got the swing low down here, and we could go below that because this is the all-time low for Euro CHF. The market has been very, very bearish, and we potentially could go a lot further. If I zoom in the higher time frames, you can see we do have a pretty lovely bearish trend here, so who knows how far we can go. In terms of a nice place for a short, coming back into a level which we broke through so easily, so impulsively without a retest. This is the first time back at this level. There's a good job. There's a good chance we'll have a reaction. You can see the prior lower highs, 1, 2, 3. Looking for another one. And again, we don't need it to come all the way back to that low to make a profit. You know, you could easily catch, depending on the entry, 1 to 2s, 1 to 3s, 1 to 4s, 1 to 5s, even back into this level here as well. And that could be a great trade within itself. So it's up to you how far you want to take it and how you want to manage it. But again, in terms of a nice place to get involved, that there looks like a really nice level around 0.948. And knowing that we have a lot of the higher time frames on our side, the monthlies, the weekly, the daily, all pointing down, all showing momentum in that direction, it means we do have that wind in our sails. So if we catch the trade right, could really rip in your direction. So keep an eye on Euro Swiss, really nice level there, 0.948, 0.94, 0.948, 0.95. There's an area up here as well. Should we break a little bit higher, which I would keep an eye on, but this really is the preferred level. So let's see what we can do at that level. But yeah, next week I am expecting downside. And that, guys, does bring us to the end of the video. If you have found it useful, please be sure to drop a like. It really does help out on the channel, helps the videos out. And do subscribe to the channel as well if you find the content useful. Make sure you hit the bell so you don't miss out on any streams or uploads in the future. Make sure you check out the Telegram Discord channel. It is linked in the description below. You guys cannot miss it. Comment down below any pairs you're looking at for next week. I do want to find out, guys. But thank you so much for watching the video. Have a great weekend. And guys, I'll catch you all in the next one.